Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and seen something you weren't supposed to see, something too intimate, too dangerous to name? That night still lives in my bones. It was supposed to be ordinary. My son had gone to the market to grab a few things, and his friend, Liam, stayed behind, flipping channels on the TV like he always did when he visited. Nothing felt out of place. Not until he followed me down the hall and stopped outside my room. "Can we talk in private, Yisol? He asked. I thought he needed advice, maybe something about school or work, but when he stepped inside and quietly closed the door behind him, I felt the shift, like a storm cloud slowly covering the sun. Before I could ask what was wrong, he said something that changed everything, and in that moment, I wasn't just my son's mother anymore. My name is Elise, I'm 42 years old, and for the past 8 years, it's just been me and my son, Mason. His father, my husband, died in a sudden car accident when Mason was only 15. One minute, I was folding laundry. The next, I was picking out a coffin. Since then, I've learned to live with silence, the kind that fills a house after laughter leaves it. I filled my days with routines, mornings making tea, afternoons in the garden, evenings watching reruns I'd already memorized. But every now and then, life would sneak in through the cracks. Mason bringing home his friends was one of those cracks. And Liam, he was different. Mason met him during his first year of university. Liam was a year or two older, charming in a quiet, effortless way. He had these deep green eyes that made you feel like you'd already told him a secret, even if you hadn't spoken yet. From the moment he stepped into our home, something about him unsettled me, and not in a bad way. He was polite, funny, always offering to help. He'd wash dishes without being asked, fix the back gate when it squeaked. He once brought me a small lemon tree for my birthday because, he said, "You seem like the kind of woman who'd care for something that needs time." Over the months, his presence grew familiar. I never expected anything of it. Why would I? He was my son's friend. Barely mid-20s, I was twice divorced from my youth, wrapped in motherhood and grief. But sometimes I'd catch him watching me. Not with lust, something else, like curiosity, like admiration. I ignored it. I had to. It wasn't appropriate. It wasn't possible. The night everything changed, the house smelled of rain and rosemary. I'd just taken a pie out of the oven. Mason offered to run to the market before it closed. We'd forgotten cream. Liam stayed back, sitting at the kitchen table, drumming his fingers softly. It was a warm, heavy evening, the kind where the air sticks to your skin. The sound of thunder rolled in the distance, and the scent of wet earth wafted through the open windows. The lights flickered once. Then Liam stood and asked, "Can I talk to you for a second? Just us?" His voice was low, steady. He didn't smile. I nodded and led him toward the hallway. My bare feet patted softly on the hardwood. I didn't know what I expected him to say. Maybe something about Mason, maybe something about school. But the moment we crossed into my room and he gently shut the door behind us, I knew I'd been wrong. This wasn't about Mason at all. The moment the door clicked shut, I felt the temperature in the room change, not physically, but emotionally. The air felt heavier, charged. I turned toward him, folding my arms across my chest more out of reflex than modesty. "What's going on, Liam?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, maternal even, though my heart had begun an unsteady rhythm. He looked around the room like he was trying to find a version of me he had seen before. His eyes lingered on the bookshelf, the old framed photos on the dresser, memories arranged like armor. "I didn't plan this," he said softly. I didn't even know if I'd have the guts to say anything, but the second Mason left, it felt like the only time I'd get. My throat tightened. "Liam, what are you talking about?" He took a small step forward. "You know what I'm talking about." His voice wasn't forceful, it was honest, and that scared me more than anything. I opened my mouth to speak, to shut it down before it could take shape, but he cut in. "You feel it too, don't you?" he asked almost desperately. "This pull between us?" I swallowed hard. "You're my son's friend." "And you're not just someone's mother," he replied, stepping closer. "You're you, and I see you, Elise. Not just the woman who folds laundry or sets dinner plates, I see you." I felt a tremble in my knees, but stood my ground. "Liam, you're half my age." His lips lifted into a sad smile. "I'm 25. I know what I feel." I turned away, trying to collect my thoughts, to silence the fire building in my chest. The part of me that had been numb for years was now fully awake, flushed, alert, aching. I could hear the rain starting outside, tapping softly on the window like it too was holding its breath. "I can't do this," I whispered. This is a line we can't cross." He didn't argue. Instead, he said the one thing I wasn't prepared for. "I'm not asking for or anything. I just needed you to know, because pretending not to feel it is driving me insane. Every time I come over, I feel like I'm balancing on a wire, praying I don't slip and say too much." I turned to face him, my eyes stinging. "Do you have any idea what this would do to Mason if he ever found out?" "I'd never hurt him," Liam said quickly. "That's why I kept my mouth shut for so long, but I can't keep carrying this around and pretending you're just someone I nod politely to at dinner." His words cut deep because part of me, against every rule I had lived by, felt the same. I had noticed the way he lingered after meals, how he always offered to stay and help with dishes, how his gaze stayed a second longer than necessary when I smiled. And deep down, in the darkest corners of my loneliness, I'd wondered what it meant. "I haven't been touched in years," I admitted suddenly, as if the confession slipped out from behind a locked door. "Not really, not seen, not felt. You don't understand what that does to a woman over time." He stepped forward, close enough for me to feel the warmth from his skin. "Then let me be honest with you. If it were anyone else, some random woman I passed on the street, I wouldn't feel like this. But you make me want to be more for you." My chest heaved with the weight of emotion I didn't know I had buried. "I need you to leave this room," I said finally, my voice shaking. "Please, Liam." He paused. His face was unreadable, some mixture of regret, longing, understanding. Then he nodded slowly. "I meant what I said," he murmured, "but I'll go." And with that, he turned and opened the door, leaving behind a silence so thick I could barely breathe. My heart felt torn between the mother I was and the woman I had forgotten how to be. For days after that night, Liam didn't come around. Mason didn't mention it at first. Maybe he thought Liam was just busy, or maybe he didn't want to say what he was already suspecting. I, on the other hand, carried the weight of that conversation like an anchor tied to my ribs, dragging through my chest every time the front door opened, and it wasn't him. I kept going through the motions, made dinner, folded laundry, trimmed the rose bushes outside. But everything felt different. I couldn't walk past my bedroom without remembering how close he'd stood, how quiet his voice was, how seen I'd felt in that fleeting, forbidden moment. Then, one evening, Mason spoke. We were sitting in the kitchen, the radio playing low in the background. He stirred his coffee absent-mindedly and said, "Did something happen with Liam?" My hand paused mid-air, spoon hovering over my bowl. I swallowed. "Why do you ask?" "He's been distant, won't return my calls. We were supposed to hang out yesterday and he canceled. Said something about needing space. From me." Mason looked at me, his brows furrowed in quiet confusion. Did I miss something? The words pressed at my lips like water behind a dam. I wanted to say, yes, something did happen, something that scared me, that tempted me, that made me remember who I used to be before the years carved motherhood into my bones. But I didn't. I shook my head and forced a smile. "I'm sure he's just going through something, you know how he is." Mason nodded slowly, unconvinced, and we sat in silence. That night, after Mason went to bed, I opened the back door and stepped into the cool night air. The moonlight spilled across the garden. I could hear distant crickets, the rustle of wind through leaves, the soft hum of solitude. And that's when I saw it, an envelope tucked behind the potted fern on the porch table, my name, written in Liam's slanted handwriting. With trembling fingers, I opened it. Elise. I couldn't leave without saying what I didn't have the courage to tell you that night. You changed something in me, made me question the way I've always moved through the world, quickly, carelessly, half asleep, but around you I felt present, grounded, human. I'm sorry if I made things harder for you. That was never my intent, but I couldn't keep pretending that you weren't the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Not just your face, but your silence, your strength, your sadness. I'm moving away. I need distance to figure myself out, but I'll always carry that night with me, not because anything happened, but because everything almost did. And that's something I'll never forget. Liam, I pressed the letter to my chest and let the tears fall, not because I wanted him to stay, not because I wished we had crossed that final line, but because in a life full of fading roles and forgotten desires, someone saw me, and I saw him too. We didn't fall into each other. We simply stood at the edge and remembered what it felt like to want. It's been over a year now. Mason still doesn't know. Maybe one day he will. Or maybe this is one of those truths that lives in the quiet corners of a family, never spoken aloud, but always felt. Liam never came back. I heard through a mutual friend that he moved to a different city, started working at a nonprofit, living in a small apartment near the coast. Sometimes I wonder if he ever looks out at the water and thinks of that night, that moment, that breath between what we wanted and what we knew we couldn't have. As for me, I kept living. But something shifted after Liam left. Not in a scandalous, dramatic way, but subtly, like a light coming on in a room that had been dark for so long you'd forgotten what color the walls were. I started taking care of myself again, not just out of habit, but out of desire. I wore the red scarf that had hung in my closet untouched for years. I painted my nails just because. I even started writing in a journal, small, private notes I'd never show anyone, not even Mason. Because I realized something, the story of being a woman doesn't end with becoming a mother. It doesn't freeze with widowhood. Desire doesn't retire. It evolves, it hides, and sometimes it knocks softly on your bedroom door. What happened with Liam wasn't a betrayal, not in the way people think. Nothing physical passed between us. But emotional boundaries, those are often messier, blurrier, harder to measure. And in the deepest part of me, I know we both crossed something, and yet I don't regret it. He reminded me that I was still capable of being seen, not as someone's mother or someone's wife or someone left behind, but as me. Sometimes the most intimate moments are the ones that never fully unfold, the ones that leave you standing at the edge, wind in your hair, heart pounding, not because you jumped, but because you almost did. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to change everything.